Captain, this isn't what you said was going to happen!
Mayuri has one of the best introductions in the series. I can't recall any other part of Bleach where a captain's introduction is through a literal sacrifice. When he confronts Ishida, we're watching the sins of Soul Society take form, and unlike any other captain, Mayuri is the first to pay for them. Uryu's revenge is the first fully realized arc among the supporting cast, using his Lich Steel sacrificing his Quincy powers to defeat Mayuri. True to form, Mayuri escapes through self-destruction, liquefying his body and slithering away, but that moment of defeat still matters. It's not just a loss in battle, it's a rare instance where Soul Society is held accountable, even if it's only briefly. Kubo doesn't offer redemption here, but he does offer recognition. Revenge doesn't undo the past, but it marks it. Uryu avenges his grandfather, showing both resolve and sacrifice, and yet, Mayuri's resilience is terrifying. He has modified his body to such an extent that death is no longer an end, it's more like an inconvenience. On the opposite side of this battle, we see his relationship with his daughter Nemu. Nemu reveals the worst of his arrogance. To Mayuri, she isn't a daughter, she's a tool, a living contingency plan. He boasts about her construction like a masterpiece, convinced she can endure any pain he inflicts simply because he built her that way. But despite his cruelty, Nemu gives Ishida the antidote to counteract Mayuri's Zanpakuto poison, and in a moment of quiet emotion, she admits to Ishida that she's relieved Mayuri didn't die. He would have if Ishida had aimed for the head. Mayuri, of course, used her as bait, slicing through her to wound Ishida. It's a twisted father-daughter dynamic, but there is a connection between them. Nemu is conscious. She has thoughts, desires, and the early stirrings of independence, slowly emerging into her own being. This fight served as a brilliant way to resolve Ishida's revenge against the cruelest man in Soul Society, while also placing the metaphorical weight of Soul Society's sins onto Mayuri. It set him on the path to becoming one of the most complete Shinigami in the Goti 13. Through this fight, we learn of his cruelty, his obsession with experimentation, and the extreme lengths he'll go to in the name of research. But it's in Wako Mundo, specifically his battle with Szayelaporro grounds, that we begin to understand the mindset behind Mayuri.
Bankai. Konjiki, Ashisogi, Jizō.
Wako Mundo is where Mayuri faces his mirror image, Szayelaporro grounds, the Espada scientist who believes he's reached the pinnacle of evolution. On the surface, it's a battle of wits, two mad scientists trying to outmaneuver one another, but beneath that, it's a clash of scientific philosophies. Szayelaporro craves control. His experiments exist to prove his superiority. When he declares himself the perfect life form, he reveals his fatal flaw. He believes science is a means to an endpoint called perfection. Mayuri, by contrast, sees science as a perpetual process, not a destination. To him, failure, data, and adaptation are sacred. He doesn't just anticipate Saizo's abilities through surveillance, he anticipates them through a worldview. Every battle is an experiment. When Saizo consumes Nemu to regenerate, he falls into Mayuri's trap and is injected with the superhuman drug, a substance that forces the mind to experience time at an agonizingly slow pace. Mayuri doesn't just defeat him physically, he turns Saizo's entire being into a metaphor, the agony of stagnation, masquerading as progress. As Saizo crumbles, Mayuri delivers the final blow, not with his Zanpakuto, but with his philosophy.
The truth of the matter is, I despise perfection. Perfection is a dead end, a condition of hopelessness.
Perfection is a dead end for scientists. Through Szayelaporro, we begin to understand Mayuri's core ideology. Where Saizo seeks to become a god, Mayuri rejects the very idea, because a god has nothing left to learn. To Mayuri, a scientist must remain flawed, curious, and ever-changing. This is his true immortality. What this fight also reveals is that battling Mayuri means entering a sequence of experiments. His Shikai and Bankai are not ultimate moves, they're options. His body is full of fail-safes. He has pushed himself toward perfection, but paradoxically, he built that perfection on the willingness to fail and adapt. Yet, he is nothing without Nemuri Kurotsuchi. Mayuri's cruelty towards Nemu is often misinterpreted. Nemu tells Saizo that taking her hostage is pointless, not because Mayuri is indifferent, but because he's prepared for it. His strongest countermeasures are hidden within Nemu, reserved for anyone foolish enough to lay hands on her. Touching Nemu comes with a price, and that price is usually your life. Waco Mundo reveals a different side of Mayuri from the one we first met. He is arrogant, he is brilliant, but he's also cruel, yet strangely capable of love. Like his fight with Ishida, there's a twisted form of reconciliation buried in the chaos. When Ishida once was his victim, is forced to rely on Mayuri's help, the moment isn't warm, but it is honest. There is always a cost to battling Mayuri. Ishida paid it with his Quincy powers, Szayelaporro paid it with his life. These two battles serve as Mayuri's physical and mental crucibles, preparing him for what's to come in the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Although Nemu did survive against Szayelaporro, we do see a shifting attitude from Mayuri towards Nemu. He doesn't question his masterpiece any less, but we can't ignore the fact that the superhuman drug was a failsafe. This is a failure that Mayuri will overcorrect for in the coming Thousand Year Blood War arc, as we see his relationship with Nemu grow even closer to an actual father-daughter relationship.
Nemu, your job is to inject that nerve coagulating agent directly into an arrow that has been neutralized.
Mayuri independently slaughters 28,000 Rukungai citizens to preserve the world's balance. When Yamamoto questions him, Mayuri simply replies, "Someone had to do it." He even calls out Yamamoto, blaming him for the crisis at hand for not eliminating Yhwach earlier, 1,000 years ago. Ironically, Mayuri is left off the list of war potentials, a grave mistake. No one had done more for the protection and preservation of Soul Society than him. He discovered how the Quincy's were stealing Bankai. He countered their Shadow Realm by designing a suit of light. He salvaged the bodies of defeated Arrancar experiments from Szayelaporro that proved invaluable in Soul Society's defense. Where most captains fell, Mayuri didn't. He was fascinated by the enemy, but in his own twisted way. He still ensured the survival of vital assets like Kenpachi and even the zombified Hitsugaya. 2/3 of the fight against the Miracle wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Mayuri's interventions. And as an overlooked war potential, he secures one of Soul Society's biggest victories, his battle against Pernida, one of Yhwach's elite. Prenida's ability, the compulsory, weaponizes nerves, mutating and adapting at terrifying speeds, but instead of fear, Mayuri is exhilarated. Knowledge from books is merely knowledge until proven, he says, and how wonderful it is that I can experience theory and reality back to back. This joy and danger is Mayuri's ethos. Risk is discovery. Pain is data. He unveils his new Bankai, Matai Fukin Shotai, a grotesque infant that spawns countermeasures mid-battle. Yet even this fails, as Pernida evolves beyond it, destroying Mayuri's arm. Then Nemu intervenes. Her defiance is silent and stunning. She acts without command, shielding Mayuri by severing her own arm. He explodes. "You do not have the freedom to die unless I tell you to." It sounds cruel, but it's not anger, it's fear. He's not enraged that she disobeyed, he's terrified of losing her. She responds with something Mayuri cannot compute. "I can best show you the results of my growth by protecting you." This is the soul of their art. For Nemu, evolution means more than survival, it means choice. Her love and sacrifice aren't programmed. They're proof that Mayuri succeeded in creating a being with a will, a daughter, not a doll. When Nemu sacrifices herself to destroy Pernida, Mayuri is quietly shattered. He sees her torn apart and hallucinates Szayelaporro, a symbolic intrusion of his own scientific ego. The illusion mocks him, suggesting Nemu's death is merely an opportunity to make something better. But it's not Szayela's voice, it's Mayuri's old self clawing its way back in. He dismisses the hallucination. Mayuri conducts his final experiment, allowing Pernida to consume Nemu's remains. Once again, even in death, Nemu's remains are his final failsafe. Her body was rigged with unstable cells. They swell, they burst, and Pernida is defeated. Mayuri walks away, cradling Nemu's brain, her soul, her essence, the one thing he made sure he took before Pernida consumed her entire body. He collapses, body and mind exhausted, and in a rare moment of grace, he is thanked by Ikako and Yumachika, even the zombified Hitsugaya, gratitude he doesn't know how to receive. But the most telling moment comes before he passes out, as he states, "With Nemu's evolution, I have finally beaten Urahara." He lost the one thing he cherished the most, but consoles himself by framing it as a scientific victory. In truth, it's grief disguised as pride.
Ashisogi Jizō, Matai Fukuin Shotai.
Mayuri's relationship with Nemu is as fascinating as it is disturbing. Created through the Nemuri project, Nemu was the product of his desire to engineer life and surpass divine limits. From the beginning, She was treated not as a person, but as a tool, given enough autonomy to function, but never the freedom to choose. The dynamic was clear: master and invention, father and manufactured daughter. His abuse of Nemu, choking her, using her as bait, disregarding her pain. It's horrifying to watch and read, but it reveals something deeper about Mayuri's psyche. Why is he so cruel to the one person that is closest to him? The answer, I believe, begins with his Zanpakuto. Ashisogi Jizō. Ashi, leg. Sogi, cutting. Jizō, the guardian deity of children and souls in Japanese Buddhism. This imagery isn't random. The grotesque infant form of his Bankai reflects Mayuri's self-perception as a creator. A baby symbolizes new life, but this one is monstrous, engineered, and deadly. Like all of Mayuri's creations, it's a distorted reflection of innocence. The fact that Mayuri modifies his Bankai, something traditionally seen as an expression of one's soul, tells us that even his spirit is subject to experimentation. For him, nothing is sacred, not even the soul. This leads to my theory. Mayuri's obsession with control stems from a childhood of trauma, neglect, and abuse. His desire to remain in the Maggots Nest, the prison for unstable souls, may have provided a twisted form of stability. In a life marked by chaos, control became safety. His Zanpakuto, with Jizō as its namesake, suggests a subconscious link to that childhood, a corrupted guardian figure forged by pain. In that sense, Nemu isn't just his creation, she is him. She embodies the vulnerable, childlike part of Mayuri that he cannot accept. By controlling her completely, by denying her autonomy, he ensures he's never betrayed or left behind again. It's a trauma response master's authority. I control you, so I cannot be hurt by you. But over time, something unexpected happened. Nemu began to evolve, quietly, patiently, observing battles, learning, growing. And when she disobeys him in the fight against Pernida, when she chooses to protect him, not out of programming but out of love, Mayuri was forced to confront a truth he never anticipated. His creation had become a person. When Nemu died, it shattered him, but he didn't cry or mourn. He processed that grief the only way he knew, through science. By salvaging her brain, her core, he ensured she lived on in data. But the act was more than functional. It was sentimental in the only way Mayuri understands sentiment. Nemu didn't surpass expectations by obeying him. She surpassed them by choosing her own path. Through compassion, through sacrifice, she proved that evolution is possible, even when raised in chains.
Evolution. I have finally created a soul from nothing that is capable of evolving on its own.
Mayuri Kurotsuchi is not a villain. Not to me. His actions, while horrific, exist firmly within the boundaries of what Soul Society permits. During the Soul Society arc, he had already paid for his sins against the Quincy. What he did was grotesque, yes, but also invaluable as research. Every move Mayuri makes is either for the advancement of Squad 12 or the preservation of Soul Society. A central contrast in Bleach lies between those who seek godhood, power, perfection, and control, and those who remain seekers. Mayuri is the latter. He mocks the very idea of being a god because to him, godhood is stagnation. He doesn't crave dominion over others. He craves understanding. As he told Szayelaporro, I detest perfection. To me, perfection is despair. Scientists must take pleasure in the external chase for greater knowledge. The moment you think you're perfect, the moment you play God, you've lost. 10 years later, in the epilogue, we see the results of Nemuri Hachigo, the 8th Nemu. She's livelier, more expressive, even yelling casually at Mayuri. He scolds her for being informal. He mutters that he's unsure how she got that way. But we know how. Somewhere in that brain, whether by design or echo, Nemu number 7's will carried over. Her final act left an imprint, and Mayuri, despite his attempts to maintain order, allowed that growth to remain. Maybe he couldn't bring himself to suppress it. Maybe he didn't want to. This is Mayuri's evolution. The man who once mutilated his own soul for progress could no longer undo the emotional scar left by the one creation he couldn't fully control. It's speculated that Mayuri is one of Kubo's favorite characters, and with the depth of his character arc, I can easily see that being the case. Also, we have a new schedule at Cafe Zealot. Once a month, we'll be doing a old school vintage anime retrospective. Every Monday will be a new Bleach video, and on Fridays will be a rotation of the manga that I'm reading from Black Clover, Kagurabachi, and Gachi Akuta. That's all for me at the cafe. Peace out, Zealots.